on K Records, which is a label out of Olympia, Washington. I'm Chris Doritas, and this is Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW. Lois, perhaps you caught them Friday night at Cafe Troy with Beck. Maybe you saw him at Jabberjaw Saturday night. If not, you might have a chance to check him out at UCLA tonight if you happen to be a student at UCLA. They're at the Cooperage, an 8 o'clock show. That Dog opens the evening. We're happy to be joined in the studio by Lois Maffeo and Trio. How you doing?
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's so great to have you here. Thanks for getting up early and making some time for us this morning.
Yeah, I know it's hard for punk rockers to wake up this early, but we made a valiant struggle.
That's right. Yeah. Well, being an old radio hand yourself, that you understand the importance of being on time and all that.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that. You mentioned punk rocker. I mean, that's really what you come out of. I mean, to listen to that track, Evening in Paris, you wouldn't say, "Well, this girl is a punk rocker."
I don't think I've ever been like a leather jacket punk rocker, but I think I was really informed and formed by the do-it-yourself ethic. And I always, when I was younger, listened to a lot of Los Angeles hardcore and a lot of stuff. I've been, a music fan for a really long time. So I think that between that and a lot of the stuff, the kind of post-punk in Britain, Raincoats and Young Marble Giants and things like that, I think that inside I'm definitely a punk, leather jacket or no.
Yeah. Well, you say Los Angeles hardcore.
Well, I think that I stopped. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and that was really all I was exposed to when I was like a teenager. And so, like all the bands, like Black Flag and things like that, were what my scene was. So, to look at me now, you wouldn't think of it, but and I think that hardcore kept growing, and I kind of grew out of it. So I only got exposed to a pretty narrow.
Well, you actually chronicled a lot of it, too, because while you were in college, I guess at Evergreen State, you were a punk DJ, I guess.
Yeah, I had a couple of radio shows. I had a talk show called The Tea Party, and then I did an all-women's punk show called Your Dream Girl, and tried to get a lot of bands that were had female input, whether instrumental, vocal, whatever was happening, and I garnered a lot of records and wrote to a lot of people and did my show.
Right. Well, you actually probably nurtured a lot of that, I'm sure that a lot of girls started putting bands together, at least in the Northwest, because of your support up there, I would think.
Well, I think I used to get a lot of letters and get tapes sent to me and passed to me, in various ways. And I think it was starting a mindset that like girl rock was its own genre, and that it was cool, and that you didn't have to be scared to walk into a record store to buy strings. That you could just walk in and say, "Yeah, I'm a musician." So.
Do you still think that girl rock is its own genre?
Yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I think that a lot of people, a lot of women I've talked to have said like, "Oh, I don't want to say I'm just a girl band or we're an all-girl band, that we're just a band." And I'm always like, hey, why not make the distinction and be, proud of your gender and, rock out.
I didn't know about the talk show that you had, Tea Party.
Oh, it was sort of a short-lived thing. It was a subject of controversy because they weren't supposed to play rock and roll on the radio during the daytime hours on KAOS FM in Olympia.
Chaos.
So, yeah. Chaos by name, chaos by nature. So I kind of would do crazy things like ask my friends to come in and talk about like what was on Star Trek the night before or whatever. It was sort of a talk show for the way people really talked, the way that it was like at school. And so I thought to be making it on a show, we had to actually play what we were listening to. So all the other daytime programmers got mad at me because they thought that like if people heard, some garage band at noon, they wouldn't stay for folk at 3 or whatever. But
I see.
we got over it.
So that's why the show ended up bailing, I guess.
Yeah, eventually I think that I decided to just be a rock programmer instead of, a noontime gal.
And the chatty noontime gal.
Yeah. Oh God, can you tell?
No, not at all. I wasn't thinking that at all. We're happy to have the trio here in the studio. You're actually going to be doing some live stuff here, starting off with a track that comes from Butterfly Kiss, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is the previous album.
Yeah, it's the first record on K.
Lois, live on KCRW. The band is called Lois, performing live in the studios at KCRW. Song it's called Spray. You'll find it on the Butterfly Kiss LP that came out on K Records. I'm Chris Doritas. This is Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW. We're joined in the studio by Lois Maffeo on guitar and vocals, Juan Carrera on bass, and Amy Farina on drums, which is really a new trio setup for you, right?
Yeah, I always sort of, throughout the times I've been playing music, have played with a lot of different people in a lot of different circumstances. And when I decided to start a band called Lois, which coincidentally is my first name, I wanted
Just a coincidence.
Yeah, merely coincidence. I wanted it to be able to sort of have a lot of different faces. So on Butterfly Kiss, Calvin Johnson, who runs K Records, invited Stuart Moxham, who had been a member of one of my favorite British punk bands, the Young Marble Giants, to come and produce it. And so he played bass on it. And then when we did Strumpet, I played with Molly Newman, played drums, and we asked, for instance, Steve Immervar from the band Codeine to come and help us play bass. So it had a lot of different things going on within it. And so Molly was really tied up with her other two bands, Bratmobile and the Frumpies. And so I was like, well, what should I do? And I started practicing with my friends Amy and Juan, and it just sounded really cool. So we thought, hey, the new Lois.
The new Lois. You mentioned minutes ago that you were raised in Arizona and you ended up at Evergreen State College. How did you end up heading that far away from home?
Well, I went to Catholic high school, and even as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't a leather jacket punk. I think I had subversive ideas, and I heard about this school that didn't have any grades, and you got to study what you wanted, and they had a lot of equipment to, make movies and junk like that. So I decided, I want to go there. So I went into the counseling office, and I told Sister Katrine, hey, Sister Katrine, I'm going to go to the Evergreen State College where they have no grades and stuff. And she was like, Lois, that would be the worst mistake you could ever make. So that was the key. The nuns said it was the worst mistake I could ever make in my life. It must be good. So I figured that as the key.
So you went from discipline to indiscipline.
Yeah.
Yeah. You spent most of the 80s in Olympia, Washington, right?
Yeah.
And, aside from the radio show that we were talking about, you, I guess, didn't really pick up an instrument till the mid-80s.
No, yeah. I was kind of busy being a fan, I think, and doing the radio stuff. And then I realized that the more I talked to women, because I was doing this all-women's radio show, the more people I met that really inspired me. And so I saw this guitar one day, and I said, wow, that's really beautiful. So I bought it sort of like you'd buy an object, and I kind of kept it around for a while. And then I finally saw in like a book about punk that there was an old punk poster in England that said, learn these 3 chords, now form a band. And I learned those 3 chords and started a band.
Do you miss the radio?
Yeah, that's why I get so stoked when we get to play on the air, because it's got sort of like the feeling. It's weird, we were talking about it earlier, because there's no audience, and I'm really used to there not being an audience in a way from doing that kind of thing of like live performance. But usually after you end a song,
Oh, I see.
You usually hear someone kind of
clapping. Yeah.
Clapping.
Someone somewhere off in the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're playing in the studio where there is no. Well, obviously we have an audience, but.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's just not what, I'm not really scared that you guys are going to stage dive or anything.
That's true, yeah. Plus, we're separated with glass here, so we'd hurt ourselves if we... But anyhow, you mentioned Strumpet. That's the most recent release. It's on K Records. It's available pretty much everywhere, and I think it's really my favorite artwork of the year. I just love the way this album looks.
Yeah, it was designed by Taewon Yu. He's in a band called Kicking Giant, and he does beautiful, beautiful artwork.
It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, obviously we love what's inside too. Otherwise, we wouldn't. You wouldn't be here. We'd be. No, the station's really been fond of the album, and we've been playing it quite a bit.
Oh,
and,
cool! Thank you.
This is actually a song that comes from the album. Lois live in the studio on KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic.
Stop talking, tearing me apart.
Lois performing live on KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic, a song called Return, Your Turn. This is on the Strumpet release, new from K Records. I'm Chris Doritas, and Lois Maffeo on guitar and vocal, Juan Carrera on bass, and Amy Farina on drums. This is a band that really came out of, first, Olympia, Washington. Now I understand, Lois, that you've moved to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, the murder capital.
The murder capital. It's from one Washington to another.
Mm-hmm. I thought I'd experienced them all. There might be another Washington somewhere. There's probably one in every state, most likely. But
yeah,
I think I'm pretty happy in D.C. though.
Why D.C.? I mean, why'd you?
Well, Olympia's a really small town, and I kind of was in the mindset after I graduated, and I moved to Portland for a little while and hung out, and I missed Olympia. And then I came back and I thought, gee, I feel like I know everybody and I've done everything. And we had started a film festival, and I just done kind of a lot of things. And so I thought, well, I think I'll, do my Mary Tyler Moore thing and, go to the big city and throw my beret up in the air and say, look at me, world. And so I wrote friends of mine that did music stuff in various cities. I kind of made a short list and said, wrote a letter and said, should I move to your town, or, what do you think? What are the pros and cons? And I got a couple of responses, and but the response that I got from a friend in Washington, D.C. that had a list of 100 reasons to move to Washington, D.C. and 3 reasons not to. And so I think it was item number 16 or something was everyone is a good dancer. So I thought, well, that sounds like a good reason to move. So I packed up my Volkswagen and drove to Washington, D.C.
So are you a good dancer?
I don't know.
Are you the one person in Washington, D.C. it's not?
That's the great thing about radio, is no one can see.
That's true. Plus, all your band members live in Washington, D.C., right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we live in the same neighborhood. It's called Mount Pleasant. There were riots there about 2.5 years ago, and I think that's where the name Riot Girl came from, was those the Mount Pleasant riots. And the young women that were around at the time doing music and fanzines and stuff would come home, and all the boys would be saying, yeah, we threw rocks at the cops, and the girls would be like, yeah, big deal, we're going to start a girl riot. And it kind of became Riot Girl.
Riot Girl, which turned out to be sort of a music movement of sorts, mm-hmm. that you've actually been associated with because of the punk radio show you were doing. A lot of people kind of pointed to your show and said, well, it's some of the same sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Right. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Well, yeah, I have. I think it's also because I've lived in the kind of two loci or whatever of the movement, Olympia and Washington, D.C.
I see. That makes sense. This is actually another song from the Strumpet LP, which is available on K Records, which is a small indie label out of Olympia, Washington, which you must be very happy with. You've stayed with them for quite a while.
Yeah, they not only are they friends, but I think that they embody a kind of ethic of music making that I really feel akin to. And they've always had a lot of women on the label, and they've always been really encouraging of people to play, and they kind of appreciate originality and focus more than having chops or whatever.
Is that the extent of the ethic, or is there something more that is stated from the label that you...
Well, I don't think that there's any kind of manifesto of K, but I think that they really just encourage people to make music. A lot of people characterize it as fun or cute or innocent or primitive, but I think that if you look at all the different acts on the label, from Mecha Normal that has crazy squealing guitars to a new band Link, who's kind of a pop hardcore kind of thing, to a really heavy hardcore band that's coming out on K called Carp, they have a real spectrum of music. It's not all Tiger Trap and Lois. I think that they really appreciate people, just kind of doing it, and getting through it and playing really beautiful, cool, or crazy music.
What does the K stand for?
I don't know. It must stand for something. I guess just the letter K.
Yeah? I mean, there's nobody that's running the label that has a K in their name or anything.
No, it's kind of one of those things of through history, they'll probably have some sort of crazy significance attached to it, like the Rosetta Stone or something. But I think it just is a K.
Let's try to get 2 tracks back to back here. Why don't we just do Sugar Rush into, because I think we have time for, I think, probably two tunes. You
Okay.
Want to pick which two you want to do, or?
I think what we'll do is play, I'm going to play Sugar Rush quickly by myself, and then we'll play a brand new song. How's that?
Fantastic.
The new song's called Saint What's Her Name.
Okay. Lois on KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic.
Awake, awake, awake. Is it a way to stop the sun? Holding the dawn back one by one. And shivering, shivering, shivering. The night I thought I'd lost, staying a beaten candy floss. It's sugary, sugary, sugary. Get to sleep, sucking the sugar from your teeth. I'm shivering, so sugar me, shiver me away. All right.
Lois, live on KCRW. I want to, before we head into this last piece, I want to thank everybody for coming down.
Oh, and thank you. It's been really fun, really wonderful.
It's always too short, but...
but sweet.
Yeah, short and sweet. This is a new song, right?
Yeah, we haven't even recorded it yet, so...
Fantastic. We'll go out with this. Again, thanks to Juan Carrera on bass, Amy Farina on drums, and Lois Maffeo, guitar vocals, the band Lois on KCRW.
Ask the sun for light. Said I quit last night. Out of sight. Story of my life, day out and day in. At least that's what they're saying.
We're listening to Lois live on KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic. I'm Chris Doritas. Thanks to the band. Also thanks to my co-producer, Tracy Saratine, and Liz Cipher for assisting me. We've got 5 copies of Lois's band, Strumpet. First 5 subscribers who call 310-450-3524 get a copy of the Lois release Strumpet from K Records. Newsstand is next.
everything I